listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is your host, Jacob Bozen.
And I am your co-host, Jamie Lovato.
For his last episode with us for the month, so this should be a good one.
I know. Yes.
Today we have a guest who I don't know, but she submitted on one of the forms to come onto the show as our guest for this week. Her name is Monica Tanner. Like I said, I don't really know a whole lot about her, so Monica, let's just have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Monica Tanner. I've been married for almost 24 years. We have four children, and I am a relationship and intimacy coach. Had to think about that for a second. I work with couples who a lot of times are on the brink of divorce to help them love their relationship again. I am certified in relational life therapy as well as sex therapy. I I have my own podcast called Secrets of Happily Ever After. I wrote a book for my oldest son who's married. It's called Bad Marriage Advice because I knew that when he told me he wanted to get married and he was very young, I knew that he would get lots and lots of advice. And my husband and I learned kind of the hard way that some of the well-meaning advice that people want to give when they see a young couple getting married is actually very bad advice. And so I wanted to warn him of the bad advice and kind of give him a better way, some skills that I have learned not only in my own marriage, but also working with lots of couples that prove valuable in a marriage or romantic relationship. And so that's me in a nutshell. If I'm not hanging out with my family or working with clients, I like to go on walks and read books about relationships.
Wow, that's really cool. I this will be a good conversation today because a lot of the people who come onto the show as guests, they have a lot of turmoil in their relationships, of course. That's kind of the point of the show is to talk about these experiences that are really bad for people.
Mhm.
So I'm really curious about the book that you wrote and then also what you think is what people are giving as bad advice.
Yeah. I think some of the classics that I think most of us would agree is bad advice, like happy wife, happy life. I think that's terrible advice. I mean, you can't build a relationship on the happiness of one person. So I prefer to say happy spouse, happy house. You want both people to be getting what they want and need out of the relationship. So that's just an easy one to tackle right off the bat. I think don't go to bed angry while it has some biblical roots. I don't think it is what we think it is. I lost so much sleep in my marriage, in the early part of my marriage, because my husband would just roll over and go to sleep after we would fight, and I would sit up and stew and worry and cry and spiral because I thought that he didn't care about me, he didn't love me, and he wasn't listening to all these people who told us that the key to a happy marriage was to never go to bed angry. So I like to unravel that one. One that I hear all the time is learn how to compromise. I think that's horrible advice. I think nobody really wants to compromise. So we can talk about that if you guys would like.
Yeah, let's get into that. I think that will be interesting.
Yeah. So what do you think of, Jacob, when somebody says learn how to compromise?
Well, in my experience, I think it probably means giving up things that are very important to you, and compromising your values.
Yes, that's what I think of as well. I think of sacrifice, and I think especially this younger generation, which I can't see you guys, but I imagine you're quite a bit younger than me.
Well, I'm 27, Jamie's 30, so
There
probably
you
not
go.
too far off.
Yeah, well, I could be your mother almost. I'm 46. So yes, I think people the older generation and I think what worked in generations past, they didn't have as many resources or options as we do now. And so maybe compromising was a little bit more necessary, but now we have so many resources. And I don't think that we really need to ever compromise, which to me, compromise is you give up stuff and I give up stuff and we meet in the middle, and then neither of us really gets what we want. And that just sounds awful for the rest of our lives,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So I teach a concept called collaboration. And what the way that works is I get really curious about my position on an issue. What do I feel strongly about? What do I value? What's really important to me? What do I not want to give up? And then I get really curious about my partner. What's really important to them? What do they value the most? And what do are they not willing to give up on this issue? And we put all of that out on the table. And then we go back to me and I get curious of what are my reservations about my partner's position? What makes me nervous about what they're saying? And then I equally want to know what makes them nervous about what I'm saying. And then with all of that information, then we get really resourced. We find different options and we find a solution that is the best of what both of us value. So this is audio only, so you can't really see, but a compromise to me is one person starts on one side and the other person starts on the other side of an issue, and then you just come in the equally come towards the middle versus collaboration where you have one person in one position and then you elevate the level of the solution of which you are both coming up with.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Jamie, what are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. Simply because what I studied in communication, right, in school was that you never like compromise. People don't actually neither side walk away with what they want, right? And so being able to talk things out, or being able to discuss a little bit more and try to build upon each other is more healthy, I think, right? But I think there's a way that people have just lost that sense as well. I feel like now in this new digital world of relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And the I mean, this works whether you're talking about small issues like where to eat dinner or large issues like how to educate your children or where to live and what jobs to do, right? We have so many
Right.
more options now than they ever had in the past. We can work remotely, we can commute, we can there's just so many different resources and options that we have now that they didn't have then. But the story I tell in the book about this is it was my husband and I's 7-year anniversary, and he took me to San Francisco. And if you've been to San Francisco, you can probably picture this. To me, an anniversary dinner in San Francisco is right on the wharf, an expensive seafood restaurant where you're overlooking the water and the sun sets over the bridge. And it's like beautiful in every way. For my husband, he doesn't like seafood. He doesn't like spending a lot of money on dinner. And so everything about what I want is not what he wants. And so, we could compromise and go to Chili's or something, and I can get seafood and he can get a burger, and then neither of us really got what we wanted, but but we had dinner together. Or what we came up with, and we use this kind of as a template for what's possible, is I chose the restaurant. So I chose an expensive restaurant right on the wharf, on the water. We made our reservation at a time where we could watch the sunset over the bay. And my husband walked right across the street to In-N-Out and bought a very cheap burger with fries and a milkshake and brought it into the restaurant. And
What? He did this? Like, this is a real story.
this is a real story. It was our 7-year wedding anniversary. And the waitress looked at him and was like, "Sir, you can't. I mean, you'll get some resistance sometimes." But she was like, "You can't bring that in here." And my husband said, "It's my anniversary. My wife wants to eat here. This is what I'd like to eat for dinner." And she said, "1 minute." And she went and she got him a plate and she got him one of those nice cups from the bar, and she poured his milkshake into it and plated his burger, and we sat there and we enjoyed a really nice dinner where I got everything that I wanted and he got everything that he wanted, and there's no reason why you can't create that for yourselves.
That is
Right.
so funny. I
And
love
if you've been to San Francisco, you know there's an In-N-Out right across from the really expensive restaurants on the wharf. So why not?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Right.
It's so funny. Yeah, I guess it makes sense the way that you're putting it is for collaboration instead of compromising. I feel like a lot of my relationships have been compromising.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not in those relationships anymore. But yeah, it does make sense the way you put it. And I think that's probably helpful for a lot of the listeners to think of it in that way.
Yeah. And I work with couples who are like, how do we educate our kids? And I'm like, well, what do you value and what does your partner value? Now you look at
Mhm.
all the different options for schooling and you've got public school, you've got private school, you've got charter school, you've got specialty schools, you've got homeschool, you've got world school. There are so many options. So take the things that each of you value and create a curriculum specifically for your children that takes into consideration all of the things that you value. Nobody has to give up anything.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
I want to hear what your perspective is on a lot of our stories that people come on and share. They have been cheated on,
Mm.
if not one time, several times. Our last story that we had, this guy was cheated on like 8 times by one person.
Hmm.
What would your advice be to the cheater, but also to the person being cheated on?
Well, I think again, in those types of situations, it's very difficult to there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of, kind of betrayal that you're talking about. And so I think getting with a really good trained practitioner who can help you work through all of that to get down to the reason of honestly, there's a few things that you've got to explore. Like, what does a relationship mean to each party, right? I mean, if your starting point is two very different definitions of what a committed relationship looks like, then there you have your problem, right? You've got to first figure out what each person sees as the definition of a committed relationship and what they want to be a part of. And then you have to see the reason why. What is it that is tempting or influencing the cheater to go outside of what the two have established is the meaning of a committed relationship? And then the more honesty, I think the reality of it is the more honesty you can get out on the table and look at, the more empowered choices each partner gets to make. Do I want to be in a relationship with just one person? Or do I want to have a relationship with several people? And can I live with, and can both partners live with that, right? So I think it's really just a matter of getting a lot of honesty out on the table and then looking at it and allowing each partner to have a choice about how they want to proceed.
Do you
Yeah.
think people can come back easily from cheating?
Easily, no, but I have seen lots and lots of couples come back from infidelity for sure. You have to create a new relationship. It has to be something new. And are both partners willing to work through, the feelings, the emotions, the hurts, and work equally to create a new relationship with each other. And a lot of couples do that successfully, and a lot of couples don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you, so to approach this question, what I'm about to bring up, I'm very much against. I just want to be clear on that, but I also want your perspective on this.
Uh-huh.
What have you worked with couples or individuals or whatever it may be at this point? People who are in open or polyamorous relationships?
I personally have not worked with that relationship constellation. I have friends and peers that do, and so I will usually, if the couple wants to explore those types of options, I'll usually get really clear on what it is that they are wanting to experiment with, and then I will refer to them to another practitioner who is more knowledgeable, I would get, or experienced in that. So I don't typically work with that. I usually work with monogamous couples.
I like that. Yeah, I was just gonna, because I'm very much against the polyamorous open
Uh-huh.
relationship world. I think it's a joke. Um,
A lot of times it's trying to solve a problem that one or both partners have in the relationship. And so sometimes we can just work through what that is together. Um,
Right.
they're looking for some sort of solution to something, to boredom or curiosity or something. But if both partners want to explore an open polyamorous situation, there are practitioners that are really experienced and competent in that area. I am not.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Jamie, you were gonna say something.
No, like I definitely think I think it's interesting, and you can't speak for everyone's situation, right? But to understand that someone wants an open relationship, it goes exactly with Monica saying there's something there. There's like a piece of that there. And I feel like why a lot of them don't work out is simply because there's no honesty and there's no communication, as Monica has been referring to a lot of relationship building, right? So it's yeah. I'm glad there are trained professionals to help people through that area when they need it.
Yeah, I recently, I don't know if you guys have seen the show Couples Therapy on HBO with Orna, Dr.
Uh-uh.
Orna.
Mm-mm.
Oh, she's fantastic. Anyways, I was just at a conference in Washington, D.C., and she was one of the guest speakers, and she showed us some of her work with couples of all kinds, like threesomes and all kinds of things. And she's amazing. And so I definitely, there definitely is a space for that. I'm not trained sufficiently there.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Jamie and I are obviously gay and we are in the gay world, but a lot of the gay relationships and people that come on the show, at least from what I hear, a lot of them have explored the open relationship, polyamorous world kind of thing, and I always push back really hard on it.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting because I'm not going to say where I know this person, but I know this person from somewhere, and he's married to his husband, and they just got a third guy to be
Uh-huh.
in a throuple marriage with them. And it's interesting to see their social media because the guy who is new only is like in their photos only with one of the other guys. They're never all three of them together.
Dang.
And so I just tell everyone I predict in like 6 to 12 months that one of them is going to either leave the relationship or the other two are going to kick the one to the curb
Uh-huh.
because somebody obviously isn't getting what they want or what they need, and then they lack self-control, in my opinion, and they're in the situation that they're in right now.
Yeah, I do find threesomes to be hard. Even in friendships, when my children have, they'll be like best friends and there's three of them, there's always dynamics that are hard about that. So
Yeah.
just for me personally, I just think three's a crowd, but it obviously works for some people, and so good for them. But
Right. Right.
I do think that you're introducing some really challenging dynamics when you do that.
For sure.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. For me, it's I give people credit because I always joke that myself in general, I could barely take care of myself and I'm a handful.
Right.
And so thank goodness for my partner, right? So I
Uh-huh.
was like, I don't know. I give people credit if they want to go down that avenue and have a third person in their life to be part of that because I think it's a little bit challenging sometimes, even just
Yeah.
for two people.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah. I'm interested in this topic next. So you have relationship therapy, but you also have sex therapy. I don't really know a lot about that world. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, just to clarify for your listeners, I am not a therapist. I'm not I'm not licensed in any states. I operate as a coach, but I do have certifications in relational life therapy and sex therapy. So just to clarify, it's
Okay.
confusing. Um, so yeah, I mean, the way I started was I started working with couples, and then I realized I needed some more training so that I could work with bigger issues that couples typically bring to me. And what I found after years of working with couples is that almost always, once we start digging into the relationship, we'll get to sex. It's just such an important part of our identity as humans. We are sexual beings. And so that sexual relationship is one that you have to navigate if you want to have a good relationship. And so I knew that I needed more training, and so then I chose to certify in sex therapy as well, because it's just such a crucial part of who we are as humans and how we want to be viewed and accepted by our partners. So I do find that I use that quite often.
Yeah, I think it's an essential part of the relationship dynamic as well. I probably have a story that I'll probably put on the podcast next month about my most recent relationship that I got out of. My boyfriend or ex-boyfriend most certainly needed to come to you, Monica, because he had some severe intimacy issues. Like
Mm.
he would rather watch porn than do anything with a human, if
Yeah,
that makes sense. I imagine
because
you ran
there's
into
no
that.
vulnerability in that, right?
Right.
You can't
Right.
be turned down. You can't be, porn doesn't judge you. Yeah, that's very common.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll I'll probably tell that story next month and then I'll be sure to send it to you and you can give me some advice.
Yeah.
Or he needs the advice, not me. Maybe I do, but I think it was a him problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, yeah. And then when you do go, like, how do you find your clients? How do they, is it just word of mouth? Do you promote yourself? How do they find you?
Well, I do have my podcast, Secrets of Happily Ever After, and I have noticed that almost everyone who hires me as their coach has listened to my podcast. So that is, I think, the way people get to know me and how I think about things and talk about things. And so typically they'll find me through my podcast. I do have a little bit of a social media presence. And so, but for now, people that I work with refer other people to me. So it's just kind of it is word of mouth or just hearing what I put out on social or otherwise. So yeah, I like I said when before we started this interview, I'll talk about anything. I'm happy to and I'm happy to say I don't know if I don't know the answer as well. So
Yeah.
I'm a pretty open book, and I think people by the time they hire me feel pretty comfortable that they understand me and my values, and so that's typically how clients find me.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess from when you started doing this work from the very beginning to now, have your perspectives changed on anything? Have you
Oh,
learned
absolutely, so
something like
much.
a lot as you've talked to a lot of people about this, I imagine?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I used to think of myself as a like if you talk about it in terms of like a mechanic of a car, I used to th just want to do oil changes. Like I was like, I don't want to deal with blown engines. I don't know, if there's anything really serious happening in the couple, like I would kind of refer out or just not. But then I got lots and lots and lots of training. So I realized that most people don't hire somebody to change the oil in their relationships, and that's actually part of the problem is that if people would be more concerned about the maintenance, they wouldn't get to the blown engine stage, but most people by the time they are looking for help have blown engines. So Yeah, my ideas about relationships have changed. The content that I put out on a regular basis is meant for maintenance. It's meant for oil changes, but the couples that I actually see in my practice typically have reached the blown engine stage.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. I think that most people would have come find help at that point anyways. So I'm just curious, if you can say it's okay if not. What is the wildest thing that someone has come to you with that they needed help with as far as their relationship or sex life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the wildest thing to me was I had a couple where the wife was just about to leave her husband. She had her bags packed. She had the divorce lawyer, and the husband was like, I have no idea, like literally what she's so upset about. And they came in to me and she told me a story. I'm working on a TED Talk, and this is kind of the basis of my TED Talk. But she said, I always wanted a husband who would bring me coffee in the morning. And he never has. And I just remember the husband looking at her with these wide eyes and said, I, how was I supposed to know that? Like, are you kidding me? I will bring you coffee in bed every morning. And she had never voiced this very simple request. And sometimes we build a case so strong against our partner, but we've never really been specific about our wants, our desires, our needs. We just expected them to know. And she was ready to like end this 20-year marriage over
Gosh.
something that she had never actually said out loud.
That is wild over coffee in the morning.
Right? So
That is
simple, right? He was
very
like, "Are you kidding
specific.
me?" He's like, "I'll bring you coffee in the morning," but he just had no idea.
Ooh, if I was
Coffee's very
him, I'd
important to
be,
people.
yeah, apparently. If I was him, I would be the one filing the papers at that point. Like that is a major communication problem.
Yeah, and it's hard because you just don't know. We get raised in this kind of Cinderella culture where we think if they loved us, they would just know, and that's never the
Right.
case. Nobody
Right.
nobody reads minds, and so yeah, that's the
Correct.
wildest couple I've ever worked with, and they're happy together now, thankfully. So
Well, good thing they came to you.
Coffee every morning.
yeah,
Yeah.
coffee every morning.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on today. I think this will give our listeners a different perspective than what they're used to. I think a lot of us think that these things just happen to us. And from what I've learned from doing the podcast is everyone deals with these problems all day long. It's not just me or my inner group that deal with these things. And then, of course, people should seek help to find them and maybe go to you if they're seeking help on particular issues. So, thanks for coming on and telling your perspective and sharing about yourself and what you do as far as your practice is concerned. Do you have anything else you would like to say before we close this out?
Well, genuinely, thank you so much for having me. And I really loved talking to both of you. And if you ever need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. But if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, if you heard yourself in any of these stories, just I would say pick one thing, just pick one little thing and see if you can't get some better skill sets around it and watch as your relationship flourishes.
Yeah, good advice. Jamie, this is your last episode for being the co-host for the month. What would you like to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a wonderful, great experience, very informative in the past month I've been doing this. Um, Number one, I'm just good at almost what Monica said, communication's key. Really drive that home, right? And try to be vulnerable. Something I'm trying to learn more about is be vulnerable for myself as well. But for the listeners out there, communicate and be more vulnerable.
For sure. Okay, great. Well, yeah, for the listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. We're streaming anywhere you can get your podcasts. Make sure you rate us as well. That helps us in the algorithms. And if you have a story you'd like to share Or if you have a different kind of story like Monica, you can submit to me directly on social media. It's Romance Unraveled on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I'll get you scheduled to come onto the show. Until next time.